You know, why do business relationships fail? Why do personal relationships fail? Why do intimate relationships fail? And I think that, you know, we have the opportunity, and certainly now if I looked back on each one of those relationships, I would have handled them differently because I have a different tool set now. Being single isn't just about being on your own, and I think people have that way of seeing a single person, that you're on your own and what happened to you. I nearly got married 3 times.
Nearly got married 3 times.
Yeah, I think because I've been very focused on transforming, and I have had an incredible life, and because there have been so many experiences that I've had, I think I grew very, very quickly. And sometimes you can be in relationships that are not growing at the same speed as you are. So I just found that I outgrew those relationships in many aspects.
Any regrets in life? Things that maybe you could have done better, differently?
I've had the reflection in my life, which I think we should all hopefully get the opportunity to do. And if I could pick the one thing that's made that big difference, is the thing I've talked about. If I had approached every situation in a regulated body with resilience and walked away from situations and then thought, no, I need to go think about that.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Off the Clock.
How do you deal with stress? How do you handle that?
Coping mechanism that I have is I go for a run.
Manage stress by obviously being moments like this. Directly saying I'm going off the clock.
Just even a night out.
I'm listening to my favorite music. I go into one of the studios at the gym and I dance.
Sip cocktails and rest and just do nothing.
I ground myself spiritually.
The right amount of stress is good.
Welcome back. Welcome to yet another episode of Off the Clock. Off the Clock is not about us. It's about our guests. Today we have Suzanne, who will probably deep dive into her work, her life, and the way she's, doing business and doing things. Suzanne, why don't you tell us about yourself? Who are you?
Well, thank you, first of all. It's lovely to be here chatting to you. My name is Suzanne Ravenall, and I live here in beautiful Johannesburg in South Africa. And I run a company that's created a framework called Pattern Intelligence, as well as a bunch of different methods around neuro repatterning and also rapid repatterning.
Yeah.
And those methods have really come from 40 years of deep diving into behavior and running different businesses, one of them being an outsourcing business. For me, my life is really about learning how to lead a very transformatory and explosive life for me. Just a really exciting life where I'm growing and transforming all the time. That's really important for me.
Okay. So who's Suzanne beyond the professional title? Beyond all this behavioral work that you're doing, who are you?
I'm a person, I think, that's gone through an amazing life, really. I've been very lucky to have had many, many different experiences. And through those experiences, I think I've changed many times. I've had many different versions of Suzanne Ravenall, and that's really been about the transformation as I've gone through the process and growth. So I've had many different experiences, some of them great experiences, some of them not so great experiences, but I try not to label these things. You know, it is just what it is. And when you come out the other side of those experiences, what do you learn from that, and who do you become as a result of those incredible experiences? So for me, I'm very focused on building and creating a life that continues to be congruent and learning a lot about myself and learning about the people around me. I have my mum that lives with me in South Africa. She has dementia. And so that's become very much part of my life as well, is helping her come to terms with some of the transformation that she needs to make in her life too. I have beautiful animals in my home, and I love where I live.
Okay, cool. Keeping with all the theme about you, where you live, and all that. Apart from the animals, are you married with kids? Were you ever married?
I am not, and I have never been married, no. Okay. I've been very close a few times.
Tell us about it.
Yeah,
How close?
Very close, very close, and very long relationships. And I think because I've been very focused on transforming, and I have had an incredible life, and because there have been so many experiences that I've had, I think I grew very, very quickly. And sometimes you can be in relationships that are not growing at the same speed as you are. So I just found that I outgrew those relationships in many aspects.
How many relationships?
I nearly got married 3 times.
Nearly got married 3 times. you're very high level, Susan. You want to unpack each relationship?
You want me to unpack each relationship?
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to remember. Well, I think they were all very similar in a lot of ways. They all brought me something different. I learned from each one of those and learn more about myself, I think, than anything else, because you learn about who you are. You learn about the patterns that you hold, which I guess is something we're going to talk about today. I learned about some of the great things that I did. I learned about some of the not so great things that I was doing. And I learned about how to be really curious about who I was and how I was showing up in my life and how I was showing up in my relationships, and then kept changing that. And I found that to be one of the key aspects of my life, is to be curious enough to look at what you're doing, and to challenge some of the beliefs and things that you hold. So I found those experiences all to be transformatory in some way, shape, or form. And now I'm what they call single. And now I've just taken over a role with the YPO globally, which is a brand new chapter for single people. And I'm on the exco of that. And it's beautiful because they're approaching it in a way that says, what is single really all about? And it is about a way of life, really. So being single isn't just about being on your own. And I think people have that way of seeing a single person, that you're on your own and what happened to you and why you're not married. I think in a lot of cases now, it's somewhat of a choice, I suppose, in a lot of ways. But the connection that you make with people, the ability to be able to reach out and make friends all over the globe, has been incredible. I mean, who knows? Maybe I do meet the right person. But I think I'm in a place that says I don't need a relationship. I would like to have a relationship. But they've got to be somebody pretty special, because I don't need that person. Want and need, I think, are two completely different things. Now that you've pushed me.
So I'm going to push you a little bit harder than that, because you're high level. You saying you nearly got married 3 times, almost got married 3 times. And I'm sure the architecture of those relationships were different. I mean, nearly means you probably premarital arrangement, but never really, there must be something that kind of stopped you from crossing the line.
Yeah, I think it just was the lack of congruence. So if I looked at the relationship, I suppose if we took that out into all relationships in life, why do business relationships fail? Why do personal relationships fail? Why do intimate relationships fail? And I think that we have the opportunity, and certainly now, if I looked back on each one of those relationships, I would have handled them differently, because I have a different tool set now. Then I didn't have the tools to be able to manage things, I think, in a different way. My partner certainly didn't have the tools. And so I think we found ourselves always, crossing paths in some way and never able
Inexperienced.
Yeah, absolutely. Never able to find a way to make those things work in the way that we need to do. And I think that, as I've moved through life and I look at relationships differently, my relationships are very different to the ones that I had when I was younger. Okay. And they're much more, I don't know if I want to call them mature. I think they're more coherent, because, we have the ability to be able to have conversations, have the ability to disagree, and be able to hold 2 possibilities in both your hands, I think is an amazing thing. Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to learn was learning about conflict, and really learning about how could you be in a situation where someone's screaming and shouting at you, and you could just let that go over your head. So I've always believed in my life to immerse myself in things. I've always found that immersion is just an amazing thing to be able to learn. Right. So I've immersed myself in, for instance, wanting to learn this particular topic. And I went off and became an international mediator. So I went through a training program to really understand how to mediate. And that was a big life changer for me, because I was able to really understand that why on earth do we get annoyed about things? It enabled me to challenge my upbringing, because I grew up in an environment with my family where shouting and screaming was actually the order of the day. So we never really learned, how do you deal with, difficult challenges without actually shouting and screaming at each other? Is there another way? And I could actually remember in my 20s, I think it was, looking at a conflict situation and seeing that no one was shouting at each other. And I thought, that's interesting.
That's a
Why
better
do you
one.
not shout it? There's a different way. So it really kind of woke me up to the study that a lot of what I do today, which is about the behaviors that we hold, the challenges that we have.
Yeah, yeah.
So my relationships are very different now compared to what they were because of that coherence, the congruence, the tools.
The experience.
And I don't want to call maturity. Yes, it's experience, but it's tools more than anything else. When we can learn the tools, it doesn't matter how old you are. It changes your world.
Okay. I just want to take you back to the YPO singles kind of, grouping or network. In that network, how do you define success?
Well, actually, I'm so new to it at the moment, so I'm still learning about it. But this was the brainchild of a wonderful lady in the YPO who felt that there was a need to bring singles people together, to connect, to find, new ways of being, new ways of talking, new ways of connecting. And she is the person that's driven this. It's only recently been turned into a new chapter because she with her team that she recruited around her.
So I assume that is mixed singles. It's not like
Mixed singles,
ladies.
absolutely. No, it's all mixed singles. Yeah, it's 1,000 people across the world that are in highly professional positions, and they're finding a way to connect. So success for me, in terms of that, is just being able to find a way of being able to connect and learn from each other and be able to make brand new relationships across the world.
Romantic?
Whether they're romantic or not.
Okay, but mostly romantic.
Not mostly. I think the whole decision of the group has been to provide two things. One, yes, introduce romantic people together if they want a relationship, but also to open up this new capacity. There are so many single people in the world. And why do we have to feel ashamed about being single? And I think a lot of people do. Why don't I have a partner? Why am I not married? There's a celebration really of what as well, which is, you're single and you've got an amazing life. And here are a whole bunch of other people that you can connect with that are also having an amazing life.
Well, I mean, on this show, I'm sure people watching, they think that, being a business owner, CEO, founder of a business, you can't be single because you got so many offers left, right, forward for you to choose from. But I mean, in your case, I think you tried to choose, but 3 almost happened, but didn't happen, and you moved on. So, I mean, I'm jealous a little bit. I wish you well with this new chapter of singles, but I'll be looking from outside and seeing how successful is it, with those relationships or romantic moments you guys create.
Yeah, but remember, I also think that we're still in a cycle in this world where strong women are a bit scary. We're getting better at that, but
sorry to interject. What do you mean strong women bit scary?
Yeah, they can still be a bit scary.
What do you mean?
Well, I think that in the world we have, there are starting to be a lot of, well, not just starting to be, there are a lot of amazing women that are running different businesses and they're entrepreneurs. And sometimes they can appear to people to be a bit scary. You can be a bit out of my league, or I'd rather be in a situation where we're not so equal. So I think that we're still going through that change in the world where we bring together equals in a lot of respects, and I think that's still something we're changing and moving into. So yeah, I guess sometimes you can be a bit scary for people.
So, well,
I've probably opened up a can of worms here now.
Yeah, you have. I mean, in a way that traditionally, people are kind of socialized to, when you marry a woman, they need to be below you in terms of standing, status, even the pocket size or financial standing. But that dynamic, the business has changed it. Women are power people. They run businesses. They've got their own money. They decide their own things, and they can be too much for some people. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all about what we believe and what our patterns are, isn't it? Because it's how we grew up. So how do you perceive that relationship? What kind of relationship do you want? And what are the stories and the beliefs we've told ourselves about how relationships should be? So I think that's being challenged across the world now. That kind of way of being is being challenged, and people are changing, which is beautiful to see.
So I mean, let's move on to how it all started for you with business. I mean, you mentioned off record that you were 27, 28, having 5 million rands, and you couldn't get a a bank account because you happen to be a woman. Unpack that.
Yeah, I mean, I first of all came to South Africa when I was 24, and a lot of people were leaving and thought I was absolutely crazy. And
You were coming, they leaving.
I was coming in, and lots of people were leaving. And 1994 was an incredible period of time. And when I came here, and I found such warm people that were really passionate about making change in South Africa, and it was really beautiful. And the culture here was incredible because from where I come from, people would say, "Oh, we must get together for a night out or barbecue, as they call it, in Europe."
Right.
And often that was something that nobody followed up on. When I came to South Africa, that was the first thing I found. People would say, "Come to my house for a braai."
Yeah.
And I just found this warmness in the environment, but this passion to want to make change in South Africa was just inspiring. And I was lucky enough to go and work with Vodacom, which was then as a contractor / consultant there, and start building the sales operation, sales, field marketing operations, training operations. And I got to work with Alan Craig, senior Alan Craig, who was an incredible human being. And after what was supposed to be a year ended up being 4 years. And then I got offered an opportunity in Australia. And I sat down with Alan Craig and said, "This is where I'm headed." And he said, "Well, why don't you just start up your own business? This is what you've always wanted to do. And we will shut down some of the things that you've set up for us, and we'll outsource it." And so that's how the business started. And it was incredible. So the business was started very, very quickly. It was an outsourcing business. So we took over and managed many hundreds of people. And so at the time, I needed to just get on and start it. So I needed offices. I needed to open up a bank account. And much to my horror, as I started that process, nobody wanted to open up a bank account with me. And I was told various different things. From being a woman, I needed to get a man to sign for me. I wasn't a trustworthy source because I was from overseas. And it was
Did you get a man?
I didn't get a man, but I did find a man from FNB, Athlone in Cape Town. So it was the only place that would talk to us. And this guy was a hero because he got on a plane and flew to Johannesburg and spent a few hours with me and said, "I think you're a good risk. I'm going to open up a bank account for you." So I think he broke all the rules in the book, and eventually I think he got fired from FNB. But he opened up a bank account, which was our starting process.
Where is he today? Are you still together?
I don't know where he is today. Actually, I don't. When he disappeared from FNB, I wasn't able to track him down, so I'm not sure where he is today. But he was an amazing human being, as was Broll Properties, because at the time I wanted to rent this property that we'd found, and the sales agent said, "The problem is that you're a bad risk because you're a woman. There's a chat, same things, all the same things all over again." And I thought, I can't believe I'm hearing this. And so anyway, he introduced me to the CEO, Anton Musgrave, and he came out to see me, and I did the same thing. I spent a few hours with him and sold myself, and he said, "I think you're a good risk. I'm prepared to take it." And that's how the business started. But it wasn't easy. A lot of these businesses, when we start them, we have all of these challenges. And if you're given no enough times, sometimes we step back and think this is just not meant to be. So I was given no so many times, but said, I was just passionate about moving forward. And each one of those no's gives you I think if you can look at it with a different view, gives you the opportunity to just keep understanding what you need to do differently to get a yes. And that's how the business started. So yes, I think I was about 27 at the time, and
with 5 million rands.
Yeah, well, it was the first month's outsourcing operations costs, and that's how we started. Yeah.
Wow, what problem are you passionate about solving right now?
Patterns is the thing I'm passionate about solving because in the 30 years of running this outsourcing business, and actually maybe I should go back because. In my early 20s, I was appointed. My first real job, I suppose, was a sales representative for a company called Stena Sealink in the UK, and I couldn't understand why there was all of these amazing graduates that are coming into the company, and they had all these incredible qualifications, but they weren't really great doers. So all of the people that didn't have the qualifications seemed to be better doers than they were thinkers. And I thought, that's really interesting. So that little tiny thought inspired me to start thinking, why do people do what they do? Why do people behave in the way that they behave? Why do people do certain things in their lives and why don't they? And so that was the passion that really started me off. So this business, the outsourcing business, really made me study human behavior. So in those 30 years, we really started to understand that actually you could take people. And there's this wonderful saying about success has clues. So we used to go into businesses and we would look at the really successful people in those companies, you know, the ones that are really at the top 10% of their game.
Yeah.
And we would model that top 10%. We wanted to understand, what do you do that's so absolutely amazing? So we developed a framework to really model that successful top 10%. And then we would, or a job, depending on what the outsourcing was. And then once we modeled that and really understood it, we would create a profile for the type of person we'd need to recruit for an outsourcing operation. And then we developed a method to put people through the training process of that, to really change the way that they think, so that actually they could come out the other side of that from an average 80%er to a top 10%er. So that's what started this kind of drive for human behavior. And we found that, you know, why do people in the average 80% quite often not get to the top 10%? We found out one of those things was courage.
Yeah.
I mean, there were many things that we learned over the time, but we found out one of the things that was not always so prevalent in the average 80% was the courage. And what do I mean by that? I mean the fear of wanting to try something and failing. The fear of, you know, actually doing it several times over and actually perhaps whatever your pattern is, being told you're rejected or you're not good enough or whatever that may be. So anyway, that kicked off the process of study of patterns. And so over the 30 years, what I've learned now is that we have all of these patterns. These patterns come from the moment we're in the womb, generally right up to age 7, we're already programmed for the stuff that we tend to believe and do in our lives. And so we've developed a method now that really helps people understand, well, not just people, individuals, companies, teams, what are the patterns that you're continually repeating that keep you stuck or keep you in a place where you can't break out of that. And our job now is to find those patterns, help people understand what are the good patterns and the ones that are not helping you, how to break out of those and how to rewire your entire brain-body system to actually move forward in your life. So we can have the lives that we want, but we have to jump through a few hoops to get there.
Yeah. What leadership lessons did you learn the hard way? I mean, it looks like you've been to hell and back and learned a lot of things, including the patterns.
Yeah, I mean, one day we'll come back and we'll talk about what was the hell and back as I went through that process. But, you know, one of the leadership lessons was about regulation. And it's one of the things that we teach people now, you know, about how do you get regulated and how do you teach resilience. So it was one of the things that didn't get modeled to me and to many people when they grew up. So, you know, when I talk regulation, I'm talking about how do you actually get super regulated in your body so that you can navigate life's twists and turns really easily. So I always talk about it like this. I think that we're going through life. It's a bit like being in a rowing boat. And as you're rowing backwards into the future and you're looking at this windy road. And that windy road or that windy stream is about your past.
Yeah.
And so you're able to see what it is that you've done in the past, but you're rowing into the future and you can't really see what on earth's going on. But what we do know is that as we're going through our life, there are these twists and turns and there are challenges that hit us on a day-to-day basis. And they can be small things, you know, or they can be large things. And then sometimes when we're rowing, we get banked. So we get caught on the bank. And the key is, do you stay on that bank for a minute, 5 minutes, a week, a month, a year, 6 years? And quite often that bank is where people get stuck and they stay there and they keep saying, I'm stuck and I can't move from where I am. But stuck just really means a repeating habit on a loop, going round and round doing the same thing. Yeah. So, you know, for me, if I could have learned how to regulate myself, which would really be to be able to see each situation as just a challenge and not a crisis, because I think that that's something that we should be teaching everybody in the world. So how do you do that? And then how do you create the resilience in you so that you can just navigate through any obstacle in your life just as a twist and a turn like it is in a river without getting banked? So I've learned that through my process. And that's probably one of the biggest things, Because if I look back to all the different scenarios where things were very challenging, I think I would have probably tackled those challenges very, very differently had I have known then about regulation and how to deal with those kind of challenges in a very, very different way.
Okay, cool. I mean, you look very restrained, very calm, cool and collected. But I'm sure, I mean, running different businesses, doing different things, you bump heads with people. You make a lot of enemies. I've seen it firsthand. Any one person that you think you should have apologized to, but never get a chance to say, sorry, I was wrong, I regret it? Anybody?
God,
you don't have to
that's
mention
a great
names.
question, actually. I don't think so, because I think that as I've gone through my life, I think you do bump heads with people. I like to think that as I've gone through that process, we've both learned from that. If I could look back on that for all of the people I've ever met that I've bumped heads with, I would say thank you, actually, to all of them. Because, I look at it all in a different way now, because the bumping heads sometimes, and again, as part of the regulation process, what if you could see the person that you're bumping heads with as a worthy opponent as opposed to your enemy? That's a very, very different perspective, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
another angle.
If I look back on it and I think now, I look at all of those people that caused challenges in my life, but did they cause the challenge or did we both collectively contribute to that? That's how I look at it, you see, now.
You owning it, yeah.
Yeah, so, I own my part. I see their part, but I also look at that and see how that added to my transformation. So I think that, one of the things that is a challenge for people in life is I hear people complaining about their problems a lot. And what if you could change the way that you think about your problems to, wow, I'm learning and I'm growing here. What gift is this giving me in some way? And that is a big change. But if you can look at that in a regulated body, if you can look at that with resilience, and if you can look at that saying, what are you showing me in this particular moment? How can I learn from what's happening here and allow me to move forward differently? That's powerful, I think. And that's what everybody, all leaders in the world need to be learning now, is that if you can do that differently and if you can do that from a place of peace as opposed from a place of anxiety, it changes your response. Because I find, again, with people in the world, that when you're tired and when you're not regulated and when you are running on a crisis, when you are in having anxiety, you make bad decisions generally. And even if you believe you're not making the bad decisions, once you've had a holiday and you look back on that and you think, oh, I'd have done that differently. But what if you could do that already, if you learned how to be in a regulated body and if you learned how to look at each problem, if you like, or enemy as a worthy opponent and what you were getting from that. So I think that's how I tend to view the world now, really, from that
even
perspective.
the 3 people that you nearly got married to?
Yeah, I think that they changed me in so many good ways.
Better?
Because, yes, because I changed myself as a result of how I looked at those things. I think that they were all challenging. And I think that everything brings positives and it also brings, if you want to look at it that way, negatives. But I think that because I don't necessarily see good and bad anymore, I don't like to define things in buckets, that's good and that's bad.
But then
I
now,
did. Yeah.
Anything that you took away from one of them or one each that you owned, because sometimes, if things don't work,
yeah.
We don't own up. Sometimes we do. I've met people who had failed relationships, and they said, "Look, it was my bad, my fault. I wasn't always there. I wasn't keeping my score." Yeah.
Well, I would definitely say what I've mentioned now, the regulated side, because I don't think I was able to see the relationships in the way that I see them now.
Yeah.
So I think that was the first big thing. The second, I think that in one of the relationships, definitely I wasn't there as much as I needed to be. I was building my business at the time. It goes back to what I said about strong women, because at the time I was spending a lot of time building my business. Many hours are being put into that. And then I struggled to be able to find a way to allot my time to those things. Again, but that was part of what I've learned from my life now, instead of squashing everything into I must do that, I find a way of balancing things. And sometimes one thing gets more of our time and one thing gets slightly less, but then it's always moved around and balancing. And I think that's what balance really means for me, is that it's not about trying to make everything 50-50. It's about some things win sometimes and some things, you know, if you want to look at it that way, lose, but you manage to keep balancing those things out. So, but I would say the big thing is that if I could go back in my 20s and I could learn about, you know, being completely regulated and calm, I would see every problem that came my way or every challenge in a completely different way. That's part of that experience with all of those people taught me that.
And what does off the clock look like for you? Not doing anything, not working. How does that look for you?
Well, I love what I do. That's the best thing. So this thing about patterns is the thing that I absolutely love. And I always say that if you love something, you don't work a day in your life, do you? So for me, I love the learning about patterns. So reading, I love, and watching things containing information that's fueling my mind around that. But I love spending time out in nature. I really enjoy that. I love hiking. So one of the things that I did, I think I mentioned to you, or maybe did I mention to you, but I climbed one of the 7 summits in Russia, which was maybe something I wouldn't do now, but it was something I did at the time. And none of us managed to reach the top because of the weather anyway at the time. But it was a beautiful experience to be able to, again, challenge yourself at every single level as to how you see things. So I love spending time outdoors. I love spending time with my animals, with my family. And I have a very peaceful, relaxed life now, whereas I think I had a very fast life in the beginning.
Slow down.
So now in my late 50s, you know, my life is relatively slow. I love spending time with, you know, friends and just doing things socially as well. So that's what brings me my peace, you know, out in nature, being with my animals, being with my family, and that's what gives me joy.
And how do you process difficult days?
Difficult days.
Yeah.
I regulate myself. So as part of what I teach people now is how do you regulate yourself? So I have a bunch of techniques where, you know, the moment that I can feel that something happens that's, you know, could be a challenge, whereas in the past I would fall into that challenge and then your decisions will be very different. When I have a difficult day, let's label it a difficult day, I stop for a moment, I step back. I tend to just do some breathing or pluck out one of the different techniques that I teach people. And it gives me a moment to be able to step back and see the situation in a very, very different way. And when we don't do that, we charge in at 90 miles an hour. And when we do that, there are consequences. So learning how to stop has been one of the key things that I have learned in my life, is how do you stop and take a breath for a moment?
Okay. And I mean, on this show, we talk a lot about leadership and leadership well-being, especially sleep. How many hours of sleep do you do?
8 hours. I love my sleep. I think, well, again, it's changed because when I was rushing around, I would be up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I would have a lot less sleep. But now as I'm older, I have MS, one of the things that's the challenge in my world. So I need to make sure that I have sleep. But I sleep very well. And we were talking about just before the show started, I have an amazing tracker on my finger. I bought some, I'm into the wearable tech that helps you understand what's going on in your world. Yeah.
Warning you're not sleeping enough.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it tells you what's happening during your sleep. So if you're not having, because one of the key things about our sleep is that we clear out parts of our brain that helps heal. And if we don't have enough proper sleep, it doesn't clean out that. Yeah, if we don't have enough proper sleep, it doesn't clear out our brain properly. So I'm a big fan of the wearable tech that helps you understand what's going on. So when I wake up in the morning, I can see what's happening, and then you're able again to be able to step back. Is that same thing? Step back, have a look to see what's going on inside your body, and make some decisions, make some changes.
So I mean, now that you're talking about wearable tech, maybe we can talk a little bit about how you see AI in people's personal lives and also workplace, because it's today AI is all over the show, right?
Yeah.
In terms of corporations are still sort of figuring out how to use it. They think it's going to give them a lot of hours back from a productivity standpoint, but nobody has figured it out. What your thoughts on AI, on just the impact of work? positively or negatively, even at a personal level?
Yeah, I mean, well, on a personal level, AI has been amazing for me because I have a lot of tasks to do, and I've set up agents and things like that in my world. So a lot of my stuff gets done, and probably what would have taken me days before now takes me minutes. And so I think when we really embrace AI, there's an opportunity to be able to really change it. And also, wearable tech is a great thing. So when I wake up in the morning and I can actually not just see, well, those are the numbers, let me figure it out. AI's already figured that out and says this is what's going on.
So your CGM, continuous glucose monitoring device, is it connected to AI?
Yeah, absolutely. It's connected to the wearable tech. So it doesn't matter which one you use, but it can be connected to that wearable tech. So I can see what's going on at any point in time, glucose monitoring, and it will tell me when my body's about to crash, not when it has done. So it tells me what's happening.
Let's just, be very clear for the record. You were in CGM out of choice, not because you type 1 diabetic or type 2. It's just
correct.
To be able to deal with the sugar intake or food type intake in your body.
Yeah, I was diagnosed as being pre-diabetic and then diabetic, but we can roll that back these days with diet. So all of these things again that have happened in my world have helped me understand my body so much better and how I can manage that differently. The stuff is available. Let's use it to help us understand ourselves more so that we can make those changes. It's when we get shocked when something happens in our body and we don't really know what to do with that or how we're going to manage it that we have a problem. But when we've got this kind of devices or these kind of devices available to us, we can really make a difference. In the world, I think that my perspective of AI is that if you're not really understanding it and kind of embracing it and getting to know it, I think we might be very left behind.
Yeah, walala wasala.
Say again?
There's a kind of African way of saying walala wasala.
Yeah.
You sleep, you get left behind. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
I think that, as we're moving through life, I think we've got to really change our thinking again, the paradigm shift, which is, do we become the managers of our life or the creators of our life? And being a manager of your life is the thing that causes suffering, which we're constantly trying to manage what's going on around us, as opposed to stepping back and say, how do we do that differently? Yeah. And how do we create what's happening around us? How do we create the lives that we want? How do we create the kind of environment that we want? How do we create the kind of work that we want? So I think that we've got to go through a mind shift because AI is going to make us change. So how do we wait for that change to be imposed on us, or do we start thinking now about what does my life actually look like? How do I create something that's different as opposed to just fighting against my life and trying to manage that every single day?
Yeah. Any regrets in life? Things that maybe you could have done better, differently?
I don't think I hold regrets. If I go back to looking at my life as to could I have done things better? Oh, my word. Absolutely. I mean, if I go back to every conversation, every job, every meeting that I've ever had, there are so many things. If I go back and think, oh, my word, if I had looked at that differently, I would have had just a very, very different outcome. But, when I've done that, I've had the reflection in my life, which I think we should all hopefully get the opportunity to do. And if I could pick the one thing that's made that big difference, is the thing I've talked about. So if I had approached every situation in a regulated body with resilience and walked away from situations and then thought, no, I need to go think about that. I'm just going to take a minute. And it's one of the things I do with my clients. I say to them, it doesn't matter you're in a board meeting, whether you're in a team meeting, whether you're with your wife or husband, you can always say, I need a minute. And that need a minute might be you walk away, you go to the bathroom and you regulate yourself and you come back. And that response is always going to be 100 times more different than the one that you would have had if you just responded from your immediate emotion. So emotion gets you into trouble. And I think that if I look back, I don't have regrets, but I definitely could have done so many things differently in my life. And it all would have been around stopping, thinking, regulating, not rushing into things, taking a moment. Some people say to me that comes with age. I don't think so, because I spend time teaching people in their 20s, this kind of thing, and it changes their world when they can do that differently. It would have changed mine for sure.
And
I would have made my life much easier. Would I have wanted to do that? Because problems help you understand things, but it definitely would have made my life more peaceful, easier, less problematic.
Is there a mistake in your life that you made that you're very grateful of?
I think I'm probably, again, because I look at life differently. I think I'm grateful for any mistake. I've made lots of them, but through those mistakes, I've learned so much. Decisions, if I look back to some of the decisions that I've made, decisions that I made in a panic, where you think that you've got people around you giving you advice, and you listen to that advice, and part of you in your heart of hearts knows that that advice is not the right advice. And then you question yourself and you think, no, but these people are brighter than me, that they have been in business longer than me, that they are in these amazing jobs. And you convince yourself through that process that actually what they're saying is the right thing, and then to be swayed to go along with that. In fact, I read a wonderful book called Sway. And it's a great story. Well, it's not a story, it's really a kind of a documentary. They ran a series of putting all these different groups into a room, into different rooms. And they had only one person in the room that wasn't part of the whole scam, if you like. Okay. And each person's, the group's job was to try and sway the one individual in each one of the rooms that all of the different pieces of string actually that were lying on the table were all the same length, and one of them wasn't. And 80% of all of the rooms that they had, the one individual in that room was swayed by the rest of the team that every single piece of string that was sitting in front of them was exactly the same length. In fact, when it wasn't. And only 20% were able to stand up and go, no, I don't agree with you, I'm not playing this game. And so, if I think back again to your question, so I think I was swayed a lot of times to do things where there was a part of me that didn't believe wholeheartedly in my gut and my heart. And again, those have been great learning lessons for me. And I've made big mistakes in doing that, trusting some people where I should have rethought about, who I was, the strength of me, and believe in myself better.
Okay. You kind of been around long enough. You've seen a lot of things, and especially in the world today, which is quite in a turmoil. Anything that you could solve if you had a magic wand, like this one thing must go away, the world will be a better place?
Suffering.
Okay.
Yeah, so that for me it's my drive with the stuff that I do, the patterns, because when we're able to really understand that the patterns that we have in our life, the good, because we have good patterns and we have not such good patterns, if we want to label it like that for the moment, but we don't tend to challenge those patterns to see whether we should be changing them or not. So there are a lot of people suffering in the world, whether it's not enough money, whether it's a lack of a good environment. We see an enormous amount of abuse that exists in the world. And people are caught up in those situations by not being able to see their way out. And I see lots of people in the world that are caught up in those difficult situations and they can't see the way out. So if we were able to show people that this is a story, it's a pattern, it's a way of being, that you don't have to be there anymore and there are ways out. And that's what really drives me, because I see the hundreds of people that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. And when you help them understand how to step off that pattern of suffering, whatever that may be in your world, whether it's suffering with disease, whether it's suffering with the environment, how to get out of that and change a different environment, that's what I'm really passionate about. If I could wave a magic wand, I would change that.
I thought, given your roots, you came from the UK, and they seems to be changing their prime ministers, every so often, and I thought, why is it like that?
Well, I think that, let me answer from what I do. Look at the patterns. So if we look at the patterns of England, they are stuck in the same patterns, doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And no one is stepping back and looking at how do we do this differently. So I think, for instance, they have something called Prime Minister's Question Times on a Wednesday. And I find that fascinating, because it just takes one person to step off of Prime Minister's question time and actually just behave completely differently, because quite often they are diminishing each other and putting each other down and, never answering the questions. What if it took one person to step back and say, why don't we just get out of this pattern? I'm just not going to feed it. I'm not going to be part of it. And I actually want to be able to show that we can run a government without constantly diminishing people. I look at that and I think you have a role. When you are a senior leader, politician, whatever it is, you do have a responsibility, if you're going to be in the public eye, to actually be able to show people, how do you model it differently? Is that how we want to model in England? I'm not sure it is. So it's sad to see that. And I think it's going to take somebody with a lot of courage who probably has a lot of fear to actually make that change.
Yeah,
but it's going to take that courage to make that happen.
Maybe a lot of people won't say they want the job because the durability of that, being in that seat is like doesn't. But then again, you compare it with elsewhere in the world, Russia, America.
Yeah, show me a country that doesn't have a problem right now.
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a little bit of my last question there. Do you have any questions, any comments, anything about Off the Clock, about us?
Well, I think it's amazing what you're doing. I mean, I love these podcasts where you get the opportunity just to sit down and have a chat to people about stuff, and I hope that in some way that really either inspires or it helps. And I think that's what you're doing, which I think is absolutely beautiful. But I have got a question for you, though. Okay. So my question to you is, what patterns would you change?
I think for me, I've been kind of tired of the routine and trying to kind of rejig it a little bit. Generally, I don't go to sleep early and I don't like to wake up early. And because the pattern for a married man with kids is, you wake up early, you kind of do a prep, you take the kids to school, and then you go to work, and then you come back, So, I remember this discussion that I had with my son, and I said, look, I can't wait until you're done with high school. 1 year to go, and I'll, change the car, buy a cabriolet, and sleep 2 hours more, and leave home around 9:30 and put my shades on and put the roof down and go to work and do my 6 hour of work and leave right on time before the sun go down, put the roof down and put the shades on. That's my utopia, I really hate routine quite a lot. Why are we always doing things like this? And I had two different finance CFOs, the businesses that I used to run. And I was just quite intrigued about the organization and the routine and the order that they had. Look, bring a lunchbox, put it at the same place every day, and then 2 fruits, apple and banana. And I'll watch them sometimes let's just talk when you always start with the banana and then finish with the apple. Never mix it up a little bit. I can't do that. I don't like to do that.
Yeah.
And also the whole notion of eating at the same time every day, same thing, I kind of challenge those things.
Yeah. It gets your brain locked into a certain way of doing things, doesn't it, if you don't change it up? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's
very interesting.
That's the pattern that I try to shake it up. But you need the pattern and the discipline and the routine to kind of maintain and get things done. For instance, putting time to do off the clock, interviews. It's kind of the box that I'm in. But one day, I think the aspiration is to do these interviews in your office anytime that suits you, and just create the situation and make sure that it works. So that's my ideal world.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, it sounds lovely.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Susan, for making the time. Really enjoyed chatting to you, and I can see that it wasn't painful.
It wasn't painful. It was lovely chatting to you too. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.